Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Municipal Monday, where we update AML members on what's going on in Juneau during the legislative session and in DC as Congress debates many items of importance. This week we want to focus on, well, it's National Infrastructure Week, and what that means for Alaska and Alaska's local governments is a continued emphasis on infrastructure investment. We are glad for the legislature's attention to these issues. On the Senate side, there's a resolution from Senator Shelley Hughes in support of broadband infrastructure, and the House has debated HJR 19 and will hopefully pass that, which provides some necessary attention to Alaska's infrastructure deficit. And together they place an emphasis on the need for state and federal investment in Alaska's infrastructure. And we know that from a local government perspective, this is critical. Alaska's local governments own and are challenged to maintain the majority of Alaska's public infrastructure. Together, this includes as many road miles as the Department of Transportation, 87% of Alaska's ports and harbors, 75% of all schools, 47 libraries, 37 power utilities, the majority of the state's water and sewer systems, 15 jails, and 109 municipal landfills. Together, all levels of government should think about the system of infrastructure that overlapping layers of jurisdiction provide or contribute to. There are clear obligations of the state to maintain a system of public education, university, public health, and public welfare. By extension, this includes public safety, transportation, and energy infrastructure, alongside economic development. Essentially, what Alaska can facilitate is the opportunity to lower the cost of doing business in Alaska, even as that investment contributes to Alaskans' quality of life. Meeting these goals is a collaboration and should be between state, federal, tribal, and local partners. Infrastructure development, construction, and maintenance must be done across levels of government. This becomes more critical given the scale of the need. AML has estimated that in recent months that Alaska's infrastructure deficit stands at around $22 billion. That's $2.3 billion for school construction and maintenance, $1.9 billion for rural water and sewer, and at least that much again for urban water and sewer. Just for 40 or so local governments, about $4 billion in capital needs, roughly $400 million for port and harbor needs, with another $1.6 billion in planned projects. We know that the state's deferred maintenance budget stands at around $2.7 billion. The STIP has $5 billion in projects. Community and regional jails need maybe $500 million. And broadband will need at least $2 billion to upgrade Alaska's broadband infrastructure. Even that leaves things out. Energy infrastructure, for instance, the need to update existing power plants to facilitate the transition of renewable energy and to maximize efficiency is likely between another $1 to $3 billion more. Housing infrastructure should be considered, whereby some measures, the need to address overcrowding in Alaska's households, would require a $7 billion investment. Childcare and early learning, where funding for the construction of adequate and dedicated facilities is necessary. There remains significant gaps in service and high costs around the state. For broadband, as many as 125 communities have speeds of less than 10 megabytes per second, and our statewide goal is 50 megabytes per second. The state's capacity to adequately sustain a level of infrastructure investment necessary to maintain infrastructure, let alone contribute to new construction, is limited. Revenue shortfalls have meant contributions provide match for federal investment, but little more. As the legislature considers its approach to infrastructure and advocates for federal investment, we recommend that the state work with partners to effectively track and evaluate need across the entirety of the infrastructure system. Essentially, that means thinking beyond what a department maintains or has responsibility for, beyond what the state is responsible for, but to look across levels of government to look at the infrastructure needs of Alaska. Second, we would recommend a mechanism within the state's budget process for allocating funds to meet those needs at a level that's making a difference or consistent with industry standards, and to have that as part of a long-term plan. Let's plan for our infrastructure needs as a state to meet statewide goals. That means that today's considered infrastructure investment should be accompanied by a long-term maintenance and replacement plan. Finally, when we're thinking about federal investment, let's think about ways that that could be coordinated and collaborative in a process that's non-competitive where possible. There's simply not the capacity in many of our communities to compete at a national level for projects that would move the needle from have-not to have here in Alaska. Federal funding formulas should take into account the baseline level of need and adequately account for improving to levels established by goals relative to national averages, at least. That would be truly game-changing for things like water and sewer, broadband. Alaska needs dedicated allocations from which to draw in support of these goals. We encourage adequate infrastructure investment that corresponds to the state's interest in contributing to economic development, meeting its constitutional obligations. The federal government can assist in helping Alaska achieve these goals. A federal-led, national-level investment can and should reach into Alaska and address long-standing unmet needs. Thank you to the legislature for considering improvements to our infrastructure, and we encourage Congress to act quickly in support of these infrastructure goals and the deficit facing Alaska's communities. Thank you for joining us for this Municipal Monday, where AML works with many partners to strengthen local governments.